So before I even start, this is already one of my favorite videos and I haven't even done it yet. Not only because the topics are pretty much like my favorite topics to address and expand upon, but largely because there's a realization that I've come to that is not only just alone a realization, but it's a realization dealing with dreams. So that's like a bonus realization for me, at least. So this all started with a dream I had the other day where it was just a simple nothing kind of dream where I was kicking a soccer ball around to myself. I was just balancing it, kicking it up. You know how soccer players, I don't know the word for it, but they just kind of like juggle the ball, balance the ball, kick it up, kick it on their neck, kick it on their head, whatever it is. The only thing is, I don't play soccer. I don't have that in my catalog of things to be doing. So in this dream, I was really good at it. It's kind of like in other dreams I've had, dreams where I communicate with people in different languages, dreams where I've communicated telepathically, but just basically things that I don't normally do in the waking space. I was balancing this soccer ball all over the place, and I started to become lucid in that space because there was a movement going on, first of all, where the ball wasn't reacting in the dream space the same as it would in the waking space. And that's what kind of triggered me into becoming more lucid. What activated the full lucidity was I don't play soccer. Like, that's not my thing. I used to play baseball, used to play basketball, play disc golf now. But as far as the kicking the ball and all that, nah, that's just not my thing. So in that realization, it's kind of like with any other dream, flying, and if you're doing something, you have to balance, like I said in previous videos, you have to balance the awareness, the linear perspective with the non-linear awareness of the dream. So in that space, what was happening was with flying, I've done it before. So I could tap into the cues of what it takes to fly. So there's this energy in your core, like your solar plexus area, that centers the space, the energy for flight, constricting your core for whatever reason. Maybe it feels different for other people, but for me, my flight power comes from the solar plexus. There's also like doggy paddling that goes along with it, but more so there's the thought of knowing that you can do this. When I was juggling that soccer ball, there was no real thought there, but yet I was still doing it. And in that space of doing it without having the thought of knowing how to do it, that's what started to wake me up. Because I started to feel more tangibly, because I was lucid, the reality of what I was doing. I was like, wait, I'm doing this and I'm doing it well, but how am I doing it? Like, my thought for doing it is not there. So what exactly is the intelligence behind what I'm doing? And in that questioning, I started to become more linear and started to wake up, because that's what happens. You start to outweigh the non-linear, the subconscious, with your linear or conscious grasp on so-called reality. So it wasn't like a really big factor for me until now. And I had this dream like 3 days ago. But what triggered me now was that little bit of space, that little moment of feeling that involved doing something very well, but not having the experience of having done it, and also not having the intellectual awareness of how to do it. The balance and the coordination is all there. So physically I could do it, but I don't have a history of doing it. I don't have the knowledge. Like, it's not a muscle memory that I have, but I was doing it. And like I said before, I've done this before. Flying, obviously, you're not flying in the waking space. Another thing is like speaking different languages. And one I forgot was being able to breathe underwater. So like walking, I've had many dreams where I've been just hanging out underwater, walking underwater, hanging out underwater, just being underwater. And there in the beginning, there was that shock of, oh shit, I'm underwater, I can't breathe. And then you wake up. But over time, you start to get used to it because you realize, like Morpheus said in the Matrix, you think that's air you're breathing in that space. When you're dreaming, you're not necessarily breathing. Your body is breathing, but your conscious awareness is not needing of oxygen. You are just in the experience. And if you don't have, because oxygen is linear, oxygen is part of a reality where that reality is not limiting your non-linear reality. So I've walked underwater, I've flown, I've spoke a different language, I've apparently been able to balance a soccer ball on my feet, on my head, on my neck, my shoulders, all that stuff. And I was just like going with it. It was like, wow, this is a trip. But like I said, back to the point, I realized that there's something going on there with the flow of an experience, the belief in that flow, and the lack thereof. Because like I said, I started to wake up, but I held the dream longer while I was bouncing the soccer ball. I started to wake up, but I held the dream longer because I let go of the fact that I don't do this in a waking space. And I just kept balancing and kicking the ball around and just doing it. But the thing was, my thought in that lucid space wasn't there. I had to let go. I had to basically like flush my mind out of the equation in order to keep doing what I was doing, because the more I thought about it, the worse I got, because it wasn't my thought that was being able to do that. In that kind of thing, you're not really thinking, you're just doing it. And you have that muscle memory. But it's not as simple as just muscle memory and practice. And this was the key conclusion that I came to in this realization of piecing all this stuff together, of all these different awarenesses that I've had in dream space, along with manifesting things in real life. And my involvement in disc golf has been a very good, this is part of why I like disc golf so much. It's a very much intuitive and real-time experience. You're out in nature, you're with people. So these are like key things that activate like peak performance. Being around other people is good. Being on your own it's a different kind of good, but being around people is good, especially when you take into account people who are like rooting for you. So people who are around you, if they're rooting for you, that's energy. If they have a history of knowing that you do certain things, that's focus and energy, like positive focus and positive energy. So even if they don't like you, if they know you can do some good shit, that's a focus and an energy that adds to your experience in that moment. So that's energy. These are two heavy duty things. Being in nature, it's very clear, it's very neutral, it's very active. You can tune into it if you choose to. So these are all things that are very key in disc golf. Not only that, is in disc golf, it's not really a team sport at all. I mean, you have doubles, sometimes you play triples, but you have doubles, but even in doubles, you're just playing with somebody. Your function is still singular. It just makes it more active when you have to like pick up the slack of your partner or do something because they didn't do something or whatever it is. Point being is that you're still functioning solo. So everything that you have is based upon you being able to dial into whatever it is that you're trying to do. There are no like defense out there. There's no somebody coming at you. There's non-physical shit that goes on. Like I said, people can root for you, but there's also people that can non-physically root for you too. And it can affect you. But if you have defenses up, non-physical defenses up that counteract that, then you don't really have to worry about it. Also, if you know how to work with that in real time, then that's another thing that blocks. Because those are two separate things. Being able to have defenses up that work on their own and also in real time, in the moment. Because, yeah, you understand what I'm saying in reference to what that is. Because they are two different two very different things. So with disc golf, you have an in the moment action. You do have the muscle memory. You do have the intelligence. You have to have an awareness because it's always changing. This is another thing. You have nature, but you have nature that is constantly moving. You're throwing something in the air that is subjected to the elements, specifically the wind, even the humidity, the elevation, the moisture in the air. All this stuff affects your play. So that's a lot of shit to be paying attention to. And when you do that, some crazy, amazing, magical shit can really happen because you're dialing into a focus that doesn't really happen on a regular basis. We don't allow ourselves to go there on a regular basis because life is so much about a monotonous existing, just basically just get by. Like when you go to work, how many times are you at work and you're just zoned out, you're just sitting there and you're getting paid, but that's the energy that replaces what your possible energy is if you dialed into something. So you're basically limited to what your so-called job is, but your job in reality is your experience, how you experience reality. Are you going to experience reality based upon a zombified function only to survive, or are you going to dial into the so much of the specifics of the reality that you're paying attention to how the wind is blowing, the moisture in the air, the heat in the air, the trees that are here and there, the people that are around you, the moisture on your fingertips, the muscles in your body that might have to compensate. Like I'm dealing with a shoulder thing, like a shoulder muscle thing that's right now that's having me to adjust my style of play. I had to slow things down, which actually helped me out. Yesterday I went out to go play and I haven't played in a few days because of my it's more of a back muscle thing that's going on, but I had to slow down and make sure that it was more about form and just not going for aces, but going for just getting the disc close to the basket. And that's a different style of play. And I ended up birding 7 of the first holes that were in this weekly event that I was playing in. So there's a rhythm that you get into once you start focusing. So in one sense, that injury makes you focus more. Because if you're just fully out there and you're just, yeah, let's just go, you don't really have to focus too much. You can just go. And when you do that, you can get a little loose. You can get a little sloppy out there. So you don't have to pay attention to as much. And that could work to your benefit. Sometimes it could work against you. If you're in the zone, it works to your benefit. If not, then you can just get really sloppy. But anyway, that's pretty much why I like the sport of disc golf so much, because it's very intuitive, it's very detail oriented. Then you have the movement of your body, the flow, being able to adjust to the real-time events that are taking place. And then obviously the other stuff of being around people, your friends in nature, getting a little exercise, and the boot to being able to do some crazy ass shit that's just like you wouldn't even imagine it a lot of the times. I surprise myself sometimes. Anyway, so there's a lot of things that come into account that we don't really pay much attention to. We just kind of let them be out there. And for people who don't really go into the details of, you know, what all that stuff is, a lot of other people, specifically like people who are new to the game, they'll just kind of write it off or water it down to, oh, that guy's good, or just something like that. It's more to being good than just being good. Like you have to activate so many different things. Like on a commentary of a tournament I was just watching recently, one of the commentators was talking about one of the best players in the game. And he was talking about how that individual is on a different level because he's taking into account not only just getting the disc close to the basket, but when he gets up there, he wants to get the disc close to the basket and on the side of the basket where the wind is not going to be as effective on his next shot, his putt. And that's one more level that is above even some of the professionals that are out there. They're not even, thinking about that. But if you're going to be the best in the game, then you have to do that. And that's not, when you do that, when you up yourself to that level, there are things that happen. You're upping your awareness. And when you up your awareness, it's like exponential growth. You're not only upping your awareness and your ability to function on a level that's different than the majority of people out there. That awareness is a function in itself, and that's what I want to get into with this video. It's that function, that activation, the same way the best in the game can up their game by having that awareness, happens with people. Your awareness is that taking you to that next level. And it activates something inside of you that makes you the best in the game of reality. And you don't have to have any trophies or championships to prove anything. It's really just about your experience, how much of the experience that you are dialed into, the tangibility of your experience, the weight that you carry with each of your actions. And the main thing I wanted to share with this video, because that's basically the core of what I wanted to share with this video, the definition of it, but the math of it could be seen as the 99 to 1% of execution versus your belief in that execution. Because 99% of the execution is that belief that you can actually do it. And the confirmation that I had for that was in the dream. That was my real-time confirmation, because like I said, I had zero practice. I don't do that in the waking space. I don't play soccer. But in that space, I had the feeling, I had the knowledge, I had everything without thinking about it, and was actually doing it. I was executing this task without having any waking space foundations there. But what was happening? I was actually doing it, and doing it well. So if you can do that in dreams without having the knowledge, the waking space is going to be mirrored of that action, of that reality. Just the percentages are just going to be a little bit different, because what they call laws of this experience in comparison to the dream space are a little bit different. Your waking space and your dream space is different in many different ways. But also, it's very similar. Because like I said, I've done so many things in that space that I don't do here regularly. Like the soccer thing, another reoccurring dream that I have is basketball. And that's different. This is what made this soccer thing so there was the awareness within that space became so real for me, is because it felt different. That balancing of that soccer ball felt different than a basketball dream that I've had. Because like I said, I had no background. But when I've had basketball dreams, I have a history of playing basketball. And I can do things when I'm playing basketball in dreams that I've done before in the waking space. And some things that I haven't done before in the waking space, but have tried. At least regularly. Because specifically like dunking. I'm 6'2", so I have dunked before, like a couple of times, at most 3 times, like an actual dunk. But this was like in high school, and I was trying really hard. I've never had that. That's never been one of the things that I'm really good at. My thing was 3-point shooting. I love 3-point shooting. So in dreams, when I have 3-point shootings or when I'm far away, it's very easy for me to throw the ball in the basket. And I also have this feeling of being able to control the ball. That's the thing. I just know it's going in, because when I'm shooting it, that is the execution is the completed execution in the dream space, because there's no time in the dream space. So the time that the ball takes to get from your hand to the basket is an illusion, because why would you shoot a ball into a basket if you're just going to miss it? Like, why would you try if you're just going to miss it in the dream space? If you know you can make that ball go in the basket, if you have an awareness of the space of the dream. So I've thrown multiple shots from half court, full court shots, and gotten tired of the dream and just woken up because it was just like, why are you going to do it? It's just too easy. Another thing I've done is dunking multiple times, dunking. And then this gets a little more weird because when you're dunking, you're executing something that is very similar to the waking space, but you're also dealing with laws of the reality. So when you jump, you feel your body in the air, you feel your body going up and then coming down. That takes time, that takes movement through space. There's all kinds of different senses that are being triggered in that action. And if you dial into those senses, you can actually adjust them as the time goes by. Because like I said, there's no time that's going by, there's only the action. So when you're jumping to dunk, you can jump and just start flying if you wanted to, or you can jump way over the top of the backboard and then come down and dunk. Like, I've done this many a times before because I've been so lucid in dreams. But like I said, there's a difference between that, because how many times have I jumped to try to dunk? How many times have I actually dunked? And how many times have I missed? Like, that whole action, and even layups, you're jumping, like that whole thing. There's an action that is very tangible because you've done it before. So having that as a comparison to the soccer thing, which was zero, I've never even tried to do all that because it's just not my thing. But in space, like I said, I was doing it. So that awareness unlocked this realization that in that dream space, like being in a world or a room or a place that isn't really a place that you've ever been before, you can do things that you've never done before. Yet it's real. Like that place that you've never been in the waking space, but in the dream space, it's real. It could even feel real. Maybe it is another place that you've been some other time, but in the waking space reality, there's nothing to connect that to, but it exists. So there's nothing for me to connect that soccer thing to, but I was doing it. But there's a difference there. This was an action. Dreams just appear. You can just be in a dream, and it's a different thing. It's in the same ballpark, but it's a different sort of thing. And if you tune into the awareness of what's going on there, then you can start to have these realizations that are just beyond. So anyway, because I don't want to have this video go on for too long, because I want to make it like really about the realization. So 99% of the execution is the belief that you can do it. This happens in the waking space when you're doing anything. Something that I'm known for in the disc golf community is being able to ace, or at least come close to ace, but having a fair amount of aces, meaning throwing it in the basket from one shot. From doing that, a lot of the times when I've done it, I've already walked up to the tee. Before I've thrown it, my mind is dialed into, I'm going to throw this in that basket. This is going in that basket. If I do everything functionally correct, this will happen. And that's not all the aces have happened that way, but a lot of the times I've had that. The main point is that I'm always having that running. Like I said before, there's this background music that's playing, that's part of your function, and then there's the in the moment function that's going on too. Those are two different things. If you don't have the background music playing of this will happen, you're never going to do it. Scratch that. Because there is a chance in the luck thing that's there too. It's that 0.001% or the 1% out of the 99%. It can happen, but if you got 99% working against you, more often than not, it's not going to happen. So in reference to being functionally able to do something like that on more than one occasion because you're trying, you have to have that, in a sense, subconscious machine of belief or activation running. And then in the moment, you have to have this similar, the waking space in the moment machine running. And then when those two are running at peak capacity all the time, you're going to have more crazy magical shit happen. And then also, if you are dialing into the reality in more than one way, in different very activated ways, then you're adding to that percentage of possibility. So that could be seen not completely, but similar to the awareness of your surroundings. So it's not limited to the science, but the science is part of it. It's part of the function. It's part of the function to know the wind, to know the air, to know the conditions of the ground to get a skip, the disc that you're throwing, the release point, the movement, the timing, all of that stuff is part of the science, the math. But that's not everything. There's a non-physical math. There's a science behind the science that isn't really science, that is more a part of that action than we give credit, and especially more than we pay attention to. And that's another big point of this video that I want to share with people, because I have proof of this. This is the confirmation that I'm sharing from having this be a reality in my functional life. And like I said before, the dreams are this happening, the math and the science of the dreams are confirmation of this in the waking space, and vice versa. But more so, that soccer thing is just the trigger to the confirmation of them both being mirrored. So just as I said, that belief has to be there. You have to have the function, you have to have the science, but the belief has to be there too. Counter to that, because you know how people work against themselves, are always negative. This is also part of it too. Even the negative people, they're going to be right every now and again. Something's going to happen. Like I said, the chance, the luck, it doesn't matter. Like even a broken clock being right twice a day. It's that percentage there. That's actually what tied this whole thing together. The percentages of a broken clock being right twice a day is that chance crumb, that moment, that percentage, that luck percentage that is there. But you still have all the other hours and minutes and seconds that are potentially the right time for that thing to happen. But if you're just flopping through reality as a zombie, the best that you'll get is being right twice a day. And you're really sacrificing all the other hours. All those other 22 hours of your reality are just gone. They're left to chance. So you might have more than two things that happen right in a day. But the point is that us being thrown out of our own rhythms and being locked into this broken reality, this broken time, this broken experience, is sacrificing, in this comparison, 22 hours of our reality in a day. And if you can't do anything, you'll only be able to do something in those 2 hours that just happen to be right in the day. And part of that is, like I said, when you dial into it, you're activating. You're getting into that 22, 23, 24 hours of activation. You're able to functionally do something crazy, and awareness is equivalent to 23, 24 hours of magic in comparison to the zombified, completely pulled out of awareness reality of accidentally being right twice in a day. Part of that is questioning it. When you question your ability to do it, you're even taking away from those little accidental chance rate 2 hours that are out there. If you don't believe that you can do something, you're already limited to, at best, those 2 hours in the clock, in the day. But if you can't do it, more often than not, you're taking away from even those 2 hours of being right in a day. If you are the clock, that is the power of this belief, because this belief is the foundation of your experience, your reality. And like I said, the confirmation of that is the dream space, what I've just shared with you in the dream space. If I started to say, hey, I don't play soccer, I would have woken up. And like I said, I did. But for a moment, I got into that belief space and was like, wait a second, but I'm actually doing this. I must be doing it for a purpose. So I'll just hold it. I'll just keep doing it. And the way I held it was to just say, let go and just be in this moment while you're doing it. And to add to it, believe that you can do it, because look, you are doing it. And that's what actually let me have that dream a little bit longer. And that's what I'm saying, is that if that's true in the dream space, how much of that is true in the waking space? And people who play professional sports are aware of this. That is completely true in so many different ways. And that's the polar opposite of, like I said, of not believing that you can do something. So before I move on, like I said, key things. A broken clock is even right twice a day. So at best, a broken person can be right twice a day. When you're not even aware that you're broken, the best you could do is being right twice a day energetically. And it's not about being right, it's just about being dialed in or whatever it is. But percentage wise, you're dealing with less than 2 hours out of the whole 24-hour clock of being able to dial into the reality. And most times people are in that 1 hour. They sacrifice even 1 hour, half at best. If you don't have the belief, if you're not dialed in, if you're that broken, you're dealing with less than half. So you're dealing with 1 hour out of 24 hours. And that's that 99% to 1% of reality that I'm talking about. Or you could say 90 to 10, but I don't want to say that. In this example, I'll say the 10%. And if that's the case, the 10% is the actual 2 hours. So if it's 90-10 in reference to a clock of 2 hours out of 24 hours, then when you're broken and out of the loop, the best you can do is 10%. But if you're broken and out of the loop and don't even have a belief or an awareness of what's going on, the best you can do is actually 5%. And even in that case, that's best case scenario of somebody that's even aware of something that's going on. What's happening now in this space is that people aren't even aware of awareness. So that's where you fall into that 1% out of that zombified 10%. People are actually in that 1% of reality. When you have 99% of awareness, energetic awareness, energy to tap into. And that's where you can become enslaved on so many different levels. So in the dream space, you don't need the practice. You don't need to have any of that to execute something. You just have to have the belief. So 99% of your dream space execution is 99%, 99.999% actually. So you can have that experience because you still have that little 0.0001% of tether to questioning the entire reality where that experience is being played out. So, like I said, you can do things you've never done before, just in your belief in being able to do it. In the waking space, it's not necessarily completely polar opposite of that, but generally, when you're looking at it, it's pretty much opposite because you have these laws that are different. You have to have some kind of execution, some kind of practice, muscle memory. You have to see your body as like a dream muscle. And it takes a while to work those muscles to get in shape. And that time is part of that execution. So people who shoot 3-pointers every day, they're going to make way more 3-pointers than somebody who just believes that they can make a 3-pointer every time, but don't execute. They haven't done that practice. They haven't worked that muscle. But like I said, it's not completely, it's still 99%. That last 1%, even if they shoot 3-pointers every day, if they don't have the belief for that one split second, because that practice works as the background, like that's that background music. That is your foundation of being able to accomplish something linearly and non-linearly, physically and non-physically. You've already made that 3-pointer because you've done it so many times and that belief is there to some degree. But in that moment, when you're shooting that 3-pointer, if you question for any moment that ball is going in that basket, you'll miss. You'll miss. And that's what I'm saying. It's just that 1% is just as important as that 99%. because especially in disc golf, and this is why people in disc golf play mind games so much, and they kind of just wash it off. But people do this even if they don't have an awareness. This is a known thing among people. It's a joke in the disc golf community where a good example is this, where they nice you. They say, nice shot. And most people do this, they're just saying nice shot. But a lot of the times they'll do it and something will go wrong right in that moment. A better example of this is when people say something to you about something they did wrong, like they hit some tree or something, and then boom, you hit that same exact tree. Or a more extreme example is somebody literally saying like, oh, you can't do this shot, you can't do that. Like they're trying to put a hex on you. There's like a magic there that's there. So people are engaging in this magic all the time. They just don't realize, they don't see it as a reality. But this is a real thing. They're tapping in, trying to activate, mess with that little 1%, because they know functionally 99% of you is going to make that shot. So to affect you in some kind of way, they try to mess with that little 1%, and it's jokingly put out there, but it's not really a joke. People are aware of what they're doing, especially people, and I've seen this in tournaments where people have been playing for years, and they think they're slick with it. A lot of people think they're slick with it, but I'm like, if you're aware of magic, then you know when people know what they're doing. They know what they're doing when they say certain things. They're seeding little crumbs of uncertainty in your action. They're seeding little crumbs of possibility in your action. And it's a real thing. They're messing with your 1% of execution because they are aware of the power that you have in that 99% of reality. They know how many times you've made this shot. So the only way that they can mess with you is to try to affect that little 1% that's there. And that's what that is. People are doing magic every day. They just don't pay attention. They don't call it that. Point being is the awareness of this function, of this reality. You can't do it without the belief. You can't do it without having that as the foundation. And like I said, in that dream space, that was my proof for me. I was like, whoa, holy shit, this is not only, because I knew this is a real thing, but there's a difference between knowing and then having the math and the science and the paperwork to actually prove it. That dream was the paperwork that proved it for me. I was like, how am I doing this? But you are doing it. And the only way you can keep doing it is if you have that solid belief that you can do it. But it was even beyond that. It was more about holding the space of the reality and allowing it to happen on its own, because you're not really doing it. You're just holding the space so it can happen, basically. And that's that detachment that I've talked about in previous videos. If you hold on too much, you're not going to do it. You're going to undo it, because you're like a dream. If you consciously, linearly hold on to it too much, you're going to break it. You have to let go. So if you have that 99% of function, practice, 3-point practice, the weight of that 1%, the activation, how deeply you are rooted in the relationship with that 1% activates more of that 99%. Because you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to make that all the time. But it's not all about the practice. You have to also practice in that 1%. And like I said, there's that 1% in that moment, that active 1%, and that 1% that is not limited to a number, that happens subconsciously, just in the action, in the foundation of that action. And what happens when you have that baseline, when you have that foundation, that relationship, like that practice in that 1% as much as the 99%, you start to realize that your vision, your execution in that vision transcends time. So you're in a space where, like in the dream space, like I said, when you're shooting that basketball in the dream space, you know you've made it. You're making it. It's going in there, because why would you shoot it in the first place? So you're transcending time, and you're really all vested in and as that action. But the point is, you have to see it before it becomes a reality. And as it's becoming a reality, as you're creating the conditions to execute that reality, that's also a space that needs to be held too, because that's outside of time too. This is where everything is lining up. Everything has to line up in that moment in order to make something come true. Because in that seeing it outside of time, it becomes more of a reality relative to your creative ability. So that sight activates more of that 99% of your reality. And like I said, going back to what I said before, this is more so for the people who have this awareness. You can compare this to, like I said, people who are the best in the game, but you can compare this to awareness in general. The best in the game are going to tap into the 22 hours out of that 24 hours. The people who are working against themselves, the broken clocks, are at best going to tap into 2 of those hours, and accidentally, by chance, maybe a 3rd or 4th hour out of those 24 hours. But regularly, at best, they're really only working with 2 out of those 24 hours because, like I said, even a broken clock is right twice a day. But if you're not broken, you're activating way more than that. So your healing of yourself, your not brokenness, activates that creative ability. And when you activate and have that relationship between your creative ability and your ability to affect that creative ability, that's when you start working that muscle. You start working that muscle of your relationship with the reality. And that's when other things can happen more often. So you can see this as like scientifically, just to use some kind of word to explain what's going on. Scientifically, you're not only programming yourself to complete this function, but you're actually tuning into the conditions for that execution to happen. Like in disc golf, it's just not you throwing the disc. There's the wind, there's the conditions of the ground, there's your awareness of those 2 things, there's the humidity, there's the heat, there's trees, there's everything. There's stuff bouncing, anything. A bounce off a tree into a basket. You know, all these things. We take this stuff for granted, but you are a part of this. Outside of time, you are a part of this. So like I said, scientifically, there's 2 things that are going on here. There's your execution, and there's the conditions involved in that execution. And when you're tapping into that extra percentage, those extra hours on that not broken clock, that's when you start messing with those programs. Not only your conditions of execution, but the conditions of the reality that execution exists within. And none of this can happen without the belief, without I don't like using that word belief, but you see where I'm coming from. It's more of like an activated awareness. An activated awareness is more close to what I'm feeling this is. Belief is more theatrical. It's more fluffy. It's not that fluffy. There's more to it. There's more of you there. In activated awareness, there's more of you there. In a belief, it's more of some kind of show that's going on. It just feels that way. But if you don't have even that belief, if you don't have that activated awareness, there's nothing for that execution to build itself upon. You can't do anything. You'll be just existing in this chaos of whatever happens. Hey, maybe 2 of these hours out of the day, this broken clock will be right. Hey, maybe even more. Get a little lucky, even more. But at best, 2 times. But on average, you're dealing with less than 1. Because that lack of engaged awareness, that lack of it works against you, like I said before. If you are working against yourself, if you're like one of those people who says, I can't do this, then that's taking away from that even 2 little measly hours of something to happen. And you're only, and in that case, you're dealing with nothing but chance, nothing but luck. But whatever does happen, it'll be a one-off. It won't be something that you're actively engaged within. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share with this video, is to get that out there, to get that confirmation that I've had out there. And other people, they confirm this in different ways or been on the brink of confirming this, just didn't know how to put it together, but I wanted to share that because this is a huge deal. This is a really big thing that I wasn't able to put to words, but to be able to put it to words now is just something that I'm like really, like, in a sense, like proud of. Like, this is an achievement for me to be able to do this. Just even to become aware of it and then being able to put it to words is something that I hold in high esteem for myself, because it's something that is not only beneficial for me, but for everybody. Point being that I want to end on with this video is that when you are working in that awareness, when you're working with that extra time, because it is giving you extra time, this goes into, like I've said before, of time flies when you're having fun, and time going by so slow when you're just zombified or in this space. This is another part of that. And when you're in that space, working those muscles, you're going to be on time more than not. You're going to be able to do things more often than not. You're going to know what time it is more often than not. And that's really what it is. When you're in that zombified space, you're working with trying to find out what time it is within that, at best, 2 hours broken clock time frame. When you're in this non-physical time, you're tuning into a time that nobody can grab onto, yet you're still aware of that broken clock time. You're aware of linear time, and you don't need a clock. You don't even need a clock. First of all, you don't have a broken clock limiting your reality. And secondly, you don't need a physical clock to tell you what time it is. When you tap into this non-physical time space, which is no time, then you know what time it is without needing a clock, without needing a watch. Because you are the time. You become the time. The time doesn't exist anymore, and you become the experience. It's like knowing what time it is without needing to know what time. People just think they're guessing. Oh, how'd you know that? No, I just know. And people who even wear watches don't even know what time it is. This is why people who are broken and in that broken reality have to wear so many watches, have to be aware of the time so much, because that's the only thing holding them together. The broken nature becomes their reality. And that broken nature, this is why the system has to focus so much on time. This is why heliocentrism is such a big problem, like threatening heliocentrism is such a big problem, because you're getting into time. When you're getting into time, you're getting into the way people relate to the experience overall. And when you're getting into that relation, you're getting into how people empower themselves. And if you start breaking down the broken time, when you start healing people's broken watches, they're going to start getting out of that only limited to 2 hours out of the day reality and start activating more of those 22 hours, more of that 24 hours that they're capable of. So keeping people from breaking down the illusion of the heliocentric universe, the illusion of us hurling through space and the time, your birthday, all this time based upon an illusion, the reason to keep you away from threatening that is it's more complex than money and control. It's about the reality and how we engage in this reality. And the entities who are aware of this time, what I just shared with you, there are entities who are aware of this, who keep you broken, who keep the time, the watches, they keep all this. They keep people in that space of, at best, being right twice out of the day, but mostly being wrong and in that broken clock reality. The entities, the beings, whatever it is, could be the experience itself, whatever it is, it's feeding off of you not dialing in to activating that time or that energy yourself. Because where do those extra 22 hours go? At best, if you only have those 2 hours, where does the energy of those other 2 hours go? Does it just disappear? No. It's the food. It's being siphoned off to something. I don't know where or what it is. I know it has to deal with the entities who are keeping you broken, though. And that's the point. When we break out of that space, we'll start to see more of what's really going on here.